The moment someone finally gives you the love you begged for is often the exact moment your desire for them quietly begins to die. You don't announce it. Nothing dramatic happens. On paper, everything looks normal, but something in you feels like it stepped out of the room. While your body stays, smiles and plays along. Tonight, we're going to trace that feeling to its source and expose the hidden mechanism in your psychology that makes you outgrow the people, patterns, and attention you once thought you couldn't live without. Because once you see this clearly, you stop calling yourself broken or too picky, and you start to understand how attraction, power, and emotional self-respect are quietly negotiating behind your back in every relationship you enter. By the end of this video, the way you judge your past choices, your current connections, and your future standards will not be the same. This is PsycheLure. Think of this voice as the part of your mind that refuses to stay blind, calm, surgical, and a little seductive, guiding you into places you usually avoid looking at alone. Section 1. When your desire quietly steps out of the room. There's a moment you almost never talk about. Not the breakup, not the fight, not the betrayal. The moment before all of that. The moment you're lying next to someone who still cares about you, who still answers your messages, who still fits the picture you once said you wanted. And you notice that your desire for them has thinned out like an echo in an empty hallway. You replay the story in your head. You wanted this type of attention. You wanted this type of person. Maybe you even begged the universe for this exact dynamic. And yet now, when they text, "I miss you," your chest doesn't warm up the way it used to. You stare at the screen searching for a feeling that arrives late or not at all. You start doing small tests on yourself. You imagine them with someone else. You expect jealousy, but mostly feel tired. You imagine never hearing from them again. You expect panic, but mostly feel a strange, muted relief. So you ask the only question that makes sense in that moment. Did they change? Or did I? On the surface, nothing catastrophic happened. There was no grand speech, no sudden cruelty, no shocking event you can point to and say, "That's when it died." What actually changed was subtler and far more dangerous. Somewhere inside you, your understanding of yourself shifted. You caught a glimpse of what you actually need to feel alive. Not just distracted, not just validated, not just chosen. And from that second onward, the version of you who agreed to this relationship, this dynamic, this rhythm, is no longer the one sitting in your body. You can still perform the role. You can still answer the calls, send the emojis, show up to the dates, play the script. But underneath, it feels like repeating a line from a play you no longer believe in. And that's the part that scares you. Because if nothing obvious is wrong, how do you justify the feeling that something is deeply off? If they're not the villain, does that make you ungrateful, cold, impossible to satisfy? Before you label yourself with any of those words, pause. You are not becoming less capable of love. You're becoming less capable of lying to yourself about what love actually does to you on the inside. That quiet deadness you've started to feel isn't proof that your heart is broken. It's proof that your heart has started to tell the truth. Section 2. Why you still crave. What eventually hurts you? If your desire has already stepped out of the room, why do you still find yourself drawn to the same type of person, the same emotional pattern, the same story that keeps ending in the same way? It's not because you're stupid, it's because your nervous system is loyal. Long before you had taste, you had imprints. Your body learned what closeness feels like from whoever raised you, whoever ignored you, whoever praised you only when you performed, whoever withdrew when you had needs they couldn't handle. Maybe attention came in bursts, intense, dramatic, unpredictable. Maybe affection arrived only after a crisis, a meltdown, an argument. Maybe love meant scanning the room for mood shifts, managing other people's feelings so they wouldn't explode or disappear. Your system quietly filed all of that under one label. This is what being connected feels like. So years later, when you meet someone calm, consistent, available, your mind says, this is good, but your body whispers, this is unfamiliar, this is suspicious, this doesn't feel like home. And then someone else walks in, a little chaotic, a little distant, a little hot and cold, and every alarm should go off, yet you feel that electric pull in your chest. It's not magic, it's pattern recognition. Your biology is scanning for what it already knows how to survive, not what would actually help you heal. So you call it chemistry, you call it fate, you call it we just click. But often, what you're really feeling is the rush of not having to update your template. You don't have to learn a new way of being loved. You just have to replay the old game and hope this time it hurts less. You were never addicted to that specific person. You were addicted to the relief of not having to face the question, if love doesn't feel like this, then what else is there? Section 3. Two worlds, the life you show versus the truth you feel. There comes a point where your life splits into two versions, not dramatically, quietly, precisely. On the outside, everything looks intact. You reply. You laugh at the right moments. You play the role you've always played, the attentive one, the agreeable one, the reliable one. But inside, something stops sinking. You feel like an actor returning to a stage where the script no longer fits the mouth it was written for. The lines come out smoothly, but there's no emotional weight behind them anymore. You look at the person in front of you, the one you once chased, desired, or built routines with, and instead of connection, you feel a faint echo of who you used to be. A version of you that wanted different things, tolerated different behaviors, accepted different forms of love. It's not that they changed, it's that your inner world upgraded quietly and now the outer world hasn't caught up. So you start living in two realities simultaneously. The one everyone else can see, predictable, familiar, socially acceptable, and the one only you can feel, sharper, lonely, honest, impossible to explain without sounding dramatic. You try to tell someone what you're experiencing, but the words feel slippery. How do you explain that your heart is intact, but your enthusiasm has evaporated? How do you explain that nothing is wrong, and yet something feels profoundly false? This is where the internal fatigue begins. Not because life is difficult, but because pretending is. You find yourself tired after simple interactions, drained by conversations that used to feel easy. It's not the people, it's the shrinking you have to perform to fit the old frame. From the outside, you are functioning. On the inside, you're dissolving, and nobody sees it, except you. This is not depression. It's not coldness. It's not detachment. It's clarity growing faster than your environment can adapt. Section 4. When people sense your shift and try to pull you back. The strange thing about inner change is this. You don't have to announce it. People around you feel it anyway. They notice it in tiny ways. Ways you think you're hiding, but you're not. The way you no longer rush to fill silence. The way your eyes stop seeking approval in theirs. The way your energy no longer bends itself into shapes that once kept the peace. And without understanding why, they react. Not because you've wronged them, but because something about you no longer mirrors their familiar expectations. Some will try to pull you back gently. Are you okay? You seem different lately. What they mean is, please go back to the version of you I knew how to handle. Some will grow quietly uneasy. They can't name it, but they feel the shift, the growing steadiness in your voice, the lack of emotional chasing, the way you're less impressed by their theatrics or unpredictability. Others may respond with subtle pressure, a snide comment, a passive-aggressive tone, A joke meant to shrink you back to your previous size. Why? Because your growth destabilizes the balance they've relied on. Your calm exposes their noise. Your boundaries reveal their entitlement. Your self-respect interrupts the dynamic that made them feel superior, necessary, or in control. People don't fear your independence. They fear what it means for their role in your life. And here's the silent truth. When you evolve, others subconsciously ask themselves one question: where does that leave me? If they depended on your compliance, your softness, your willingness to tolerate inconsistency, your change feels like abandonment, even if you haven't gone anywhere. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to defend your new standards. Just understand this. Growth doesn't just disrupt your old patterns. It disrupts every person who benefited from them. And that's exactly when the most tempting strategy shows up. The instinct to make yourself small again, just to keep everyone comfortable. Section 5. The mask you wear to keep the peace. When the pressure builds, when people question you, pull at you, or subtly guilt you, your first instinct is almost always the same. Maybe I should tone myself down. Just a little. Not because you want to go backward, but because you're tired. Because explaining feels pointless. Because disappointing people feels heavier than swallowing your truth. So you put the mask back on. You laugh at jokes that no longer land. You entertain conversations that drain you. You pretend the old dynamic still fits, even as it squeezes your ribs like a shirt a size too small. For a moment, the world sighs in relief. You're back. Predictable again. Easy again. But something inside you recoils. Your body keeps the score long before your mind admits it. You feel it in the tension in your jaw when you agree to things you don't want. You feel it in the hollowness after giving someone access to you that they didn't earn. You feel it in the quiet disgust rising whenever you fake interest to avoid conflict. It's not the people who exhaust you, it's the performance. Because every time you shrink yourself to keep the peace, a part of you watches silently and whispers, "You know better now. Why are you pretending you don't?" This is the real cost of the mask. It doesn't just hide you, it divides you. A life that looks peaceful on the outside but feels humiliating on the inside will always collapse eventually, not dramatically, but through small, repeated self-abandonments that erode your sense of dignity grain by grain. You tell yourself you're compromising, but your nervous system knows when you're betraying yourself. And that's why the mask never works for long. Eventually, something breaks. Your tolerance snaps. Your old coping strategies stop buying you time. And when that happens, you fall into the quiet, terrifying space between who you used to be and who you're not yet ready to become. Section 6. The silent gap. When you can't go back, but you can't go forward yet. There is a phase almost nobody warns you about. Not the heartbreak, not the awakening, not the realization, the gap. The suspended moment where your old life no longer fits, but your new life hasn't revealed itself yet. It's the emotional equivalent of standing in a dark hallway between two doors, one behind you that you can't close, and one ahead of you that hasn't opened. This gap feels like being half absent from your own world. You stop replying as fast. You stop forcing conversations. You stop showing up with the same energy you used to, not out of laziness, not out of spite, but because your system is recalibrating. Your mind is detoxing from old forms of validation. Your emotions are unplugging from dynamics that once controlled you. This is the part that scares you most, the numbness, the emptiness, the lack of desire for anything familiar. You start asking yourself painful questions. Am I losing the ability to love? Has something in me shut down permanently? Did I make a mistake distancing myself? But numbness is not the absence of feeling. It is the pause before a new truth arrives. Your brain is discarding old emotional shortcuts. Your body is unlearning survival patterns. Your intuition is clearing space for a version of you that hasn't taken shape yet. It feels lonely, but it is not loneliness. It feels empty, but it is not emptiness. It feels like something has died, because something has. The part of you that tolerated crumbs, the part that chased chaos, the part that settled for being half seen, half heard, half valued. You were grieving versions of yourself that were never meant to follow you into the next stage. And this grief has a purpose. It prevents you from running back to what you already outgrew. Because once you survive the gap, something else begins to emerge. A part of you you've never properly met. Section 7. The treasure. You discover when you stop shrinking. In the beginning, the gap feels like loss, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, something else begins to take shape. A new standard, a new instinct, a new emotional baseline that doesn't rely on chaos to feel alive. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives in subtle ways. You no longer tolerate conversations that drain you. You no longer feel flattered by inconsistent affection. You no longer confuse being chosen with being valued. One day, you catch yourself looking at someone who once captivated you, and instead of longing, you feel a quiet neutrality, the kind that comes from finally seeing clearly. Another day, someone offers you attention they think you'll crave, and you feel nothing but a calm internal no. That's too small for me now. This is the treasure. Not arrogance, not pickiness, not emotional withdrawal, but the emergence of an untamed standard. A standard shaped not by fear or scarcity, but by the realization that self-respect is not negotiable. And once this standard awakens, your body refuses to go back to being impressed by the bare minimum. Cheap intensity loses its flavor. Inconsistency loses its charm. Hot and cold attraction loses its power. You start craving a different kind of connection, one built on steadiness rather than adrenaline, integrity rather than guesswork, presence rather than performance. You used to fall for the loudest person in the room. Now you notice the quiet, grounded ones, the ones who don't need chaos to feel significant, the ones whose peace feels like gravity rather than tension. This shift isn't about being harder to please. It's about being unwilling to betray yourself again. And when you honor this new instinct, something surprising begins to happen around you. Section 8. The hidden tribe. People who can actually meet you. When you stop shrinking, you begin to see something you couldn't see before. Not visions, not signs, not cosmic messages. People. Different kinds of people. They were always there. But your old patterns filtered them out. You were tuned to chase intensity, unpredictability, and emotional noise. So, the calm ones, the steady ones, the ones who didn't need to be dramatic to feel alive, barely registered on your radar. But now your inner frequency has changed, and suddenly these quieter energies start to feel magnetic. They don't overwhelm your nervous system. They don't demand a performance. They don't mistake attention for intimacy. They offer something far rarer, emotional consistency without needing to be convinced. You notice it in unexpected places, in a friend who listens without competing, in a co-worker whose presence feels strangely grounding, in someone whose silence feels safe, not awkward. This is the beginning of finding your hidden tribe. Not a crowd, not a fan club, not a replacement for your old circle, but a few select individuals who naturally match the emotional level you've grown into. People who speak in the same rhythm your inner world has begun to prefer. Healthy people aren't loud. They don't perform to be noticed. They don't chase or demand exaggerated reaction. They move like they have nothing to prove. And that alone feels like a different kind of attraction. Not fireworks, more like gravity. A pull that doesn't force you to abandon yourself to feel connected. You used to interpret that calmness as boring. Now you feel its depth, its steadiness. it's honesty. This shift in perception is not an accident. It's a sign that you're finally choosing from clarity, not longing. And here's the part that surprises you most. Once your standard rises internally, you don't need to chase anymore. You simply start recognizing the ones who can meet you, because your old blindness is gone. But this new clarity creates a difficult question. What do you do with the relationships that belong to your old frequency? Section 9. The middle way. Staying or leaving, without losing yourself. As your inner world shifts, you face a dilemma most people never talk about. What do you do with the people who love the older version of you, but cannot follow you into the new one? You feel the tension like a quiet weight in your chest. On one side there is history, shared jokes, shared seasons, shared versions of who you used to be. On the other side there is honesty, the truth that staying exactly as you were would mean shrinking again. This is where guilt typically floods in. You don't want to abandon anyone. You don't want to hurt people who aren't bad. You don't want to become someone cold or self-absorbed. But here's the reality you must face with calm clarity. Not everyone from your old life is meant to be exiled, and not everyone gets a passport to your new one either. The rule is simple. Stay where you can be fully yourself without shrinking. Step back wherever your truth must be hidden to keep the peace. Some relationships will stretch to meet the new you, slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly, but sincerely. These are the ones worth keeping. Others will tighten around your growth, trying to restore an old dynamic that no longer exists. Not out of malice, but because your evolution threatens the stability they relied on. You don't need to punish them. You don't need to lecture or warn or justify. Simply let the distance form where authenticity can't survive. You're not responsible for who stays. You're responsible for who you become while staying. The people meant for the deeper version of you will adjust, adapt, or reintroduce themselves with newfound respect. The people not meant to continue will fall away naturally as soon as you stop bending to keep the connection alive. This is not loss, it's alignment. And once everything that is not aligned drops away, you're left with the final choice that shapes the rest of your life. Section 10. The final door. What you refuse now shapes who you become. In the end, everything narrows into a single decision. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet moment where you stand between two versions of your life. Behind you lies the familiar, the patterns you've mastered, the roles you know how to play, the love that never asked you to rise. Ahead of you lies the unknown, the relationships that require your honesty, the standards that demand your consistency, the self-respect that refuses to bargain anymore. Most people spend their whole lives oscillating between these two doors, never fully stepping through either one. But you are not most people. Your awareness has already changed. Your eyes have already adjusted to the light. And once you see clearly, your excuses start to sound like lies. Not to others, but to yourself. The truth is simple. What you refuse today becomes the shape of what you attract tomorrow. If you continue accepting half love, you will continue receiving it. If you continue shrinking to be chosen, you will keep meeting people who expect you to. If you continue betraying yourself quietly, your life will quietly betray you in return. But if you choose the harder door, the one lined with silence, uncertainty, and self-honesty, you step into a future designed by the version of you that finally knows its worth. So let this be your internal vow. Trust what no longer fits. Trust what hurts to stay. Trust the part of you that is finally done pretending. Because that part, the one you keep trying to quiet, is the future pulling you forward. And it never pulls without purpose. The quiet afterword. When this video ends, your mind will want to drift back into old explanations, old habits, old roles. Let it try. Then notice something. The part of you that listened all the way here is not the same part of you that began. That shift is not an accident, it's evidence. You're not outgrowing people to become superior. You're outgrowing versions of yourself that were built in survival, not truth. So if tonight feels heavier than usual, or clearer than usual, or strangely quiet inside your chest, don't be alarmed. That's what real change sounds like before your life rearranges itself around it. This is PsycheLure. If you want more of these late-night descents into the psychology of desire, power, and self-respect, you know where to find me. Your evolution has already begun.